The solution to food security. It's something that mankind has looked for and tried to find for years. Well, now it's right at hand. Craig Rominger from the Post-Harvest Project tonight right here on Rainmakers. Greg, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really good to be here.
I say back because for our longtime Rainmakers viewers, you saw Craig Rominger as the president of Nano Ice, which is just a remarkable award-winning technology. Well, that's a for-profit entity, and Craig, you have gone off and have founded a not-for-profit entity that is sort of an outgrowth of your work at Nano Ice, right?
No, that's absolutely correct. As a result of getting into the food industry and helping food chain customers better preserve their products, we actually found that there's a lot of waste in the food supply chain, even here in developed countries like the US, Europe, Japan. And then when we started looking elsewhere in the world, I really found that there was a lot of waste everywhere. And I kind of decided at that point that somebody had to do something about it.
So you founded the Post-Harvest Project. What does that mean?
Post-Harvest Project is really an organization that's focused on reducing food waste as a mechanism for helping with global food security. The Post-Harvest Project is designed to do two things. One, in developing countries, what we call impact countries. What we want to do is we want to bring innovation to the supply chain to bring food to market at higher quality and fresher. In developed countries like the US, commercialized countries, we want to make people aware that they actually throw away a lot of good food, and I think it happens everywhere.
Yeah, when I hear food waste, the very first thing that comes up is that, you know, my daughter left something on her plate and she shouldn't do that, because I grew up in a household where, you know, you couldn't leave the table until you'd eaten everything on your plate. Or I'm looking at the back of a fast food restaurant, I'm seeing a bunch of food there. But you're talking about something different, aren't you?
I am. I'm talking about that as well, though. It includes that. But what we're also talking about is better supply chain practices to reduce things like shrinkage that happen throughout the process. We want to look at ways of handling the food that changes the way it's brought to market. We want to look at ways that consumers can be more responsible and not overbuy. So many good food items are thrown away simply because they're a day or two past their due date, which everybody knows. They're good, you know, the good, best if eaten by date. So much of that food is actually tossed in this country and could be used for other purposes.
When I think of food security or lack of food security, what I really think of, though, are undeveloped countries or very poor countries, which I think you called impact countries. First off, why do you call them impact countries?
Well, it's interesting. When you look at the global food supply system as a whole and you take it holistically, these are the countries right now that, if given the proper opportunity to change their supply chains and bring a higher percentage of their food to market, they're the ones that could have the highest impact on global food security, we believe, in the world.
So how did you come up with this idea? I mean, there really is waste in these countries?
Oh, it's an incredible amount of waste. And it's actually, you know, we kind of separate it to this wholesale line. In the United States, all the waste happens after the wholesale point. In developing countries, though, what's important to know is that when food gets on somebody's plate, it's almost always eaten, every bite of it. In Ghana, they make a joke with us that they even eat the bones if they're hungry enough. So we know that if we could put innovation into the supply chain to get more food on people's plates, they would eat it. What they lack is that supply chain innovation. All the food is lost before it ever even makes it to market. It's quite sad, really.
So when you're talking about supply chain, you're talking about the ones who produce the food, I guess the farmers. It's
the farmers, yeah, exactly. The farmers, the fishers, the delivery people. There's very few what we call cold chain logistics in place throughout the supply chain in these countries to really help get fresh food to market. So
how did you come up with this idea?
It actually was more of a brainstorming session between several people. I wasn't the only idea maker in this, but I'm more of a catalyst. I took the idea and brought it to a point where I think it can be executed. But some very smart people and myself were sitting around a table actually in Boston, and we just started thinking about what we could do to bring food to market more efficiently. And we were talking about here. And then we started thinking about how this could roll out to developing impact countries all over the world. And we started realizing that really the solution is in what we call innovation bundles. It's not one solution. It's not grow more and there'll be more food. It's not get it to market faster and there'll be more food. It's actually a combination of technologies that need to be put together holistically to make sure that the food is brought to market in greater quantity with higher quality.
If you're talking about, it sounds like a private sector solution to what is probably defined as a governmental problem. Is that accurate?
Is it a private sector solution? That's interesting. Yes and no. I think it's everybody's problem. I think that when you look at especially impact countries, that these are the countries that ultimately can bring the rest of the world's global food supply chain down. You know, they always say that a chain's only as strong as its weakest link. Well, unfortunately, a lot of the African countries have been almost forgotten. I think you're starting to see a resurgence now. I think there's starting to be more attention paid to that now. But not just Africa, and other places around the world too. They've been left behind in the technology game. And quite honestly, we need to get them caught up, or it's going to end up affecting us all. Now, so just real quickly, public-private problem, I think that private business working in conjunction with governments and with other public-type organizations is the only way to solve this problem. But private business can drive it because there are profits to be made by doing it better.
Profits at the bottom of the pyramid?
Absolutely, profits at the bottom of the pyramid.
Now, does that
Correct.
include profits for the farmers and the fishers and the ranchers?
No, absolutely it does. We're seeing some of our concepts and processes that are being put in place, increasing yields 20, 30, 50, 60%. You can't tell me that there's not more money for the farmer if he can increase his output 50% on the same piece of land.
We talked a little bit about food waste inside these impact countries. Give us an example or several examples of food waste that happens in a country that is so poor that they need every bit of food they can get.
I can do that for you. In Ghana, our first commodity that we're focusing on is fish. We've been to Ghana several times. We've been in the harbor and the port there in Tema. We've been out to Lake Volta, where one of the largest fish farmers in all of Africa is located. And we've seen that even in the best of situations, once the food leaves the catch point or the harvest point, it gets into the hands of delivery people, logistics organizations that aren't properly equipped with the technologies, and much of the food gets lost.
I've seen lots of pictures of fishermen bringing in their catch, and then people, typically women, will take them and then just salt them to preserve it. I mean, that's okay, isn't it?
You lose a lot of the nutritional value there, actually. And the only reason they do that is because they're forced to. Because at that point, it's reached a point in its lifespan as a nutritious food that if you don't do that, it goes to waste. And they smoke them as well. So they'll smoke them and salt them, are two ways so they dry the fish or they'll salt it. And it just ends up being not as nutritious a piece of protein by the time you have to do that.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because everything that I've read about most of those impact countries, the protein is the biggest deficiency that they have in their diets.
Oh, I agree. Ghana is a country, when you go around Africa, that's much better off than many. And they still have a 50% protein deficiency there. 50%.
So what is the Post-Harvest Project going to do to change all this?
One of the things we're trying to show is that you can have, our goal, let's put it this way, is a zero waste supply chain, okay? Using 100% of certain commodities of fish. And we're focusing in the first year on just about 15,000 tons, by all standards, a fairly small project. And what we want to do is we want to take that fish from the catch point to the consumer point, give it a longer shelf life, and use all the byproduct waste. We want to show that a zero waste supply chain is possible.
Well, what happens with the waste right now?
Well, a lot of the fish are lost whole. They're rotting, they're not making it to market, and 10 to 15% of it right off the bat, even in the best of circumstances in Ghana, is generally lost to, it just rots away and deteriorates. And then a lot of the waste is gut waste or fins or heads that aren't used for certain types of customer needs, and that's usually just thrown away right now. It's composted, it's thrown into a hole in the ground, it's dumped back in the harbor. And we actually have ways to use that waste and actually to create new revenue streams for the people of Ghana by purchasing that waste that they now throw away.
Why would you buy fish waste?
Oh, we've got a wonderful technology in the Post-Harvest Project that actually takes that fish waste and turns it into 100% organic fertilizer. So
really?
Yeah, absolutely. And the beauty of this is that we can have people in Ghana working in the fertilizer factory, people in Ghana supplying the fish waste, and then we can supply that fertilizer to the farmers of Ghana to increase the yields in their fields.
Are they ready to change from the fertilizers that they use right now?
I think so, and it doesn't require 100% change. We're not looking for 100% market share. What we're looking for is there's always room for organic treatment in products, okay? There's inorganic and there's organic fertilizer. All we're looking to do is make people aware that, one, there's an option, and our option actually helps use a waste product that right now is being thrown away. So by using our product, you can create revenue in a country where, for something right now that's thrown away, and it's a product that can actually help the people in the land. We're seeing really good increases in yield with the use of this fertilizer.
It sounds like almost a perfect solution. Why hasn't this been done before?
I think there's lots of theories about that, you know, some of them almost sinister, that there's companies out there that may not want this type of fertilizer there. But I think I'm more of a purist, and I believe that the opportunity hasn't presented itself in a way that makes it easy to, not easy, but that makes it executable. And so I think what we've done is put this together, a plan. We've approached the right people in Ghana, both public and private, with the plan. And we are getting connected with the right partners to help us execute it for the right reasons. And I think, you know, taking 3 years to put this together and plan it and work through this and get to this point, and doing our homework along the way has really helped, I think, to make sure that we can be successful.
I got a lot more things on the list to go through, including the project in Ghana, but I have to ask you this. That's just one country. Is this scalable?
Absolutely. That's one of the things we require. So when we're looking for technologies and we're looking for ways to really, you know, implement something that's going to work for the long term, scalability and replicability, being able to scale it to different size operations and being able to replicate it anywhere in the world is tantamount to how we choose these technologies.
Now, we've had the website up on the screen probably several times by now. We're going to be sure to get it up. Just be sure to go to the website if you want more information. It's thepostharvestproject.org. Okay, what I'm hearing you say is that the Post-Harvest Project can increase nutrition and create income, more income, at the bottom of the pyramid through reduction of waste.
That's absolutely correct.
All right, let's get specific about it.
Okay.
You've talked about the first project in Ghana. Let's go a day in the life of the Post-Harvest Project in Ghana.
Okay.
What happens?
Okay, absolutely. So let's take the Port of Tema. Let's take a fishing boat in the Port of Tema. When they go out to fish, unfortunately, just like any other fishing operation, a lot of times when they put their nets out, they have what is called bycatch. They catch fish they weren't intending to catch. Right now, 2 or 3 things happen with that. They either bring it back to the dock and discard it at the dock, or try to sell it in a means that's not generally accepted because they're not supposed to have the fish, or they dump it at sea. Okay? If they bring it back to dock, they have to sell it. But if it's not fresh and they don't maintain it like they do the catch that they're intending to bring into port, because they know that they're not guaranteed the money for it. So they come back to the dock and they have this fish essentially they can't sell. What do you do with it, right? That's one example. We'll buy the fish. We'll buy the fish. We'll either preserve it with one of our cold chain technologies, or we'll take it if it's beyond the point of human consumption and we'll use it to make fertilizer, which will in turn create a revenue stream for that fisherman that wasn't there before. And we'll take that fertilizer and we'll fertilize crops. The other fish that are on there that are intended to be sold at the market currently are mishandled. There aren't technologies in place in Ghana, even though there's a desire to have them, that actually take the best care of fish possible. It's just not there. They don't have the infrastructure, they don't have some other things. And it's a big problem. But we've come up with a way to install a certain cold chain technology that's actually quite portable, that fits in without the need for infrastructure, and that preserves the fish even while at sea and all the way back and through the transportation cycle in much better quality.
Let's talk about technology, because we've had it on the show before. It is an award-winning technology, and you're the president of the company, and that's just fine, because you know the world is looking for the best and brightest brains to get us out of some of the difficult situations that we're in. So how are you changing the cold chain?
Okay, that's a great question. Right now, they'll either freeze at sea or they'll use flake ice, or in most of the situations in these ports, they're getting blocks of ice out of an ice house. And they're breaking the blocks apart with rocks or hammers or pipes in order to use them on the fish. So in a lot of situations, they have to make their own ice cubes at sea by breaking up big blocks of ice. And this happens all over the place. You know, we've got pictures that are on the website of people pushing around blocks of ice in a dock. We've got, you know, it's just remarkable when you think about it. And I just took an 8-hour flight to get there from Washington, D.C. in a place where you can get perfectly fresh fish in a store that has been treated the right way throughout the process. And here you fly into this country and you realize, oh my gosh, here's a country where most of the fish they sell in the hotels and to me at the market came from Europe, frozen. And yet they've got wonderful fish in their backyard right there that's just not making it to market because there's no technology there that helps them do that.
Now, is the fish from Europe, is it discounted because it's in a country that's poor?
Oh no, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, it's just as expensive, if not more so, in Africa than as it is in Europe.
Really?
Absolutely.
How can they buy it?
Yeah. Well, not everybody can.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem.
All right, so we've got the technology that preserves or changes the cold chain. What are the challenges in implementing that technology in an impact country such as Ghana?
The status quo, believe it or not, just like it is in a lot of places. We learned a story when we were there talking to the fishing associations that in the canoes they have that they go fishing in, they used to row them out to sea, miles and miles out to sea to get their catch. And one day, somebody thought they could put a motor on that boat and go out to sea. And everybody laughed at that guy and said, why are you putting a motor on that boat? You're going to go out to sea and scare all the fish away and you're not going to be able to catch fish. And the conclusion of the story is that while the guys were still rowing out to sea, the guy was coming back in with his motorboat with his boat full of a catch. So you have to get over the mindset that technology can sometimes be a bad thing and that advancement is a change in culture when you can, I believe you can still maintain the culture and advance the science behind good food preservation.
How can you do that?
You got to show it to them. You got to show them it's just ice. You got to show them why it's different. But ultimately, when they get more money for that fish and they bring more of it back in higher quantities and higher quality, it changes them forever, I think. And our Ghanaian partners have confirmed that. The people that we work with on the ground there believe in that model. And if I can for a second, that's why PHP is important. Because we bring the money in from organizations and impact investors to prove that model first because of that fact that change is sometimes so hard to get started and to get people to believe in, that's why the PHP is here, is to make that first move and to convince those people that it's the right road to take.
Is there a lack of trust, do you think, of people from impact countries with anybody else or Americans first?
I think there's a mistrust of a lot of foreigners that come in. I think, you know, when you look back at the history, especially in Africa, and you go all the way back to the Green Revolution, you can tell it didn't work there, but it did in other countries. And there was a lot of promise, not only from our government, but many other well-funded governments around the world. And I think they may be a little bit shy about partnering with companies and governments.
You know, there's kind of a basic question that I've missed, and I should ask this. Why fish? Why not cattle? Why not chickens? Why not something else?
Yeah, well, we wanted to do something we knew we were good at first, and that we knew we had the knowledge and how to treat it right, and that's where all of our experience is historically. We're quickly getting into fruits and vegetables and other types of agricultural products. But when we went out and did this, we knew that in order to be successful in the long term, we had to be very successful in the short term. And so I think focusing on something that we're good at, that we already have experts within our network that can help us, was the right move.
Something else that you've talked about just a little bit was that if there is more yield for the fishermen, then there are likely to be more money that they make.
Mm-hmm.
Is that important for sustainability?
It is. To me, the only way to sustain positive change is to put profitable business in place. And in this situation, we've determined through quite a bit of research that innovations coupled together within a supply chain can radically change that supply chain. There's no one that can make a big enough difference to create a sustainable solution. But if you put 3 or 4 of these together, or 2 of these together as we are in this case, we found that not only is it sustainable, but it's profitable, and it's going to create economic opportunity in an indirect way for people inside and outside of that supply chain. I don't even think we know how many jobs or how much economic opportunity we're going to create. One thing I've found in my trips to Africa is that in Ghana especially, is these people are smart when it comes to finding ways to make money in an economy where it's very difficult to get ahead. And I think when we're paying for waste, you're going to see delivery systems put in place. You're going to see people create their own receiving stations. And there are going to be people all over the place that find a way to get us that waste in the condition we need because there's a revenue stream there. There's ingenious things happening in Ghana on a small scale that show that people are really thinking about a way to create economic opportunity for themselves.
It sounds like you're creating almost an entire economy around food.
Agriculture is the solution for Africa. Focusing on getting more food to market, higher quality, longer shelf life is the key to Africa's future in my mind. It is absolutely an agricultural focused solution.
Right now, Post Harvest Project is a nonprofit.
Correct.
How can, this doesn't sound like it's an inexpensive project.
It's not.
How is it funded?
It's funded in a variety of ways. We're set up to receive donations. We're also set up to work with different types of funding organizations for impact investing, grants, government subsidies, anything along those lines that is there for agricultural-based technologies, companies, or ideas in general. We're open to that. We believe that impact investing is the way to go, along with certain forms of guaranteed debt. One of my goals in this whole process is to create a funding mechanism through borrowed funds that actually allows people in developing nations to get reasonable interest rates. So if we can prove a model is going to be profitable, and we go out and show through the use of philanthropy, grants, and other types of funding that it can happen, there's no reason not to fund that with debt. But it doesn't have to be at 24% like they do in Ghana now. Why can't it? I mean, at 10%, every bank in the world would make money, as long as the projects are profitable, right? So that's something that we're aiming to get involved with as well, is help organizations see that we've reduced the revenue risk by doing the research first.
What's been the response from the government of Ghana?
Quite good, actually, and quite positive. But like we talked about, there's doubt. They want to be involved, they want us to be there, but there's still kind of a show me first mentality there, and we're prepared to do that.
You talked about the Port of Tema, that project, and you mentioned another one. The Port of Tema is a seaport, but the other one you mentioned was on Lake Volta.
Correct.
You know, lake, freshwater.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different?
It's different in a way that it's being landlocked on a lake. Some of the logistics issues are different, right? If you're going to export fresh fish that comes into the port, it goes from one boat to another and can go by sea to another country. Tema is very close to the capital city of Accra, so it's quite easy to transport some of that fish directly there. Lake Volta, depending on where you're talking about, Lake Volta is anywhere from 2.5 to 6 hours north of Tema. And
wow, that sounds like a big lake.
It is a big lake. It's actually quite a big lake. It's the largest one in the country. But there's a thriving aquaculture community on the lake, specifically with tilapia. And our partner is actually the largest tilapia farmer on the lake, and still doesn't have an ice technology that he is satisfied with. And so one of the reasons we wanted to partner with someone like, his name's Mark Amici at Tropo Farms, one of the reasons we wanted to partner with Mr. Amici is to show, one, scale. He supplies over half of all the tilapia that's in markets to the country of Ghana.
Wow.
He's quite large. And two, we wanted to show that we could work with a private partner just as well as we could work with a public authority like the port. And we wanted to show that the model was flexible enough that it could work both ways. But even Mark, a successful, profitable businessman, cannot get a loan at lower than, say, 18 to 20% interest. and he's one of the most successful fish farmers in all of Ghana. And so how does that help him as he grows his business? Everything has to be financed with cash.
Wow, huge undertaking. You said you've been to Ghana a couple of times. Describe the country, describe the people, describe what they do.
They survive.
They survive.
They do, which is kind of interesting. Depending on where you are in Ghana, you'll see amazing examples of both poverty and wealth within the same trip in many cases. There is definitely disparity there among the people, but they're a very happy and genuine people. And they love Americans. They absolutely love Americans. And they want to help themselves, but there aren't a lot of mechanisms in place for them to do that. And so when you go there and you actually spend time outside of the city and the nice hotel, and you go out to the villages and the townships, and you meet with chiefs and local villagers, you start to realize that these are people that really want to do nothing more than help themselves. That's all they want.
Before the show, you were talking about other parts of Africa that you've been. Is it similar in other parts of Africa?
It is. The other country that I've been to recently this year is South Africa, and I think when you get out of southern South Africa, you start to see some of the same things. Johannesburg's like Accra on a bigger scale in many respects, but South Africa has its own problems and some of its own, and a lot of its own success stories as well. What's interesting about Ghana and unique is I think that they're at the precipice of becoming a very innovative, successful, progressive country in Africa. Quite honestly, in that Sahel region, they could be the breadbasket for that entire region. They have the natural resources to do that. And I think the departments of agriculture and trade and industry and finance there are ready to start putting programs in place to start going down that road and make that happen.
We only have a minute left, and you're an interesting mix. You're the visionary, but you're also the operative too. Tell us your dream for this project. If it works the way you want it to, what's going to be the result?
The result is going to be a newfound way to bring innovation into supply chains and get more food to market that's fresher, of higher quality. And if you get more food to market, you can sustain that over a longer time and feed more people, even at the bottom of the supply chain, the lower end of the pyramid. And I think, we say zero waste as a goal. We don't know if we're going to get 100% usage of the food, but wouldn't you rather aim at 100% and hit 95? I mean, if I go there trying to shoot for 90 and leave 5% on the table, I'm going to be upset. So we have a goal of 100%. We're willing to reach for the stars and end up in the clouds. But we know for a fact that there is a significant amount of waste that can be reduced. And we're ready to go in there and do that and show that that one change can make a huge difference in the food supply.
And we're going to let that be the last word. That's Craig Rominger from the Post-Harvest Project. Go to the website, www.thepostharvestproject.org, and learn an awful lot more. We'll see you next time right here on Rainmakers. Take care.